What happens when Capcom tries to make two completely different Resident Evil games at once and somehow pulls them both off? Resident Evil Requiem scared the crap out of me, and I genuinely had to debate whether to sit down and do a whole nother playthrough of it or write this video. Oh, mother ever! What the? That's how good this game is. There's going to be a full spoiler breakdown at the end, so if you stick around if you want to see that. But I originally planned to wait for a sale for Resident Evil Requiem. I didn't have a ton of hype, but I kind of saw the gameplay and it kind of changed my mind on it some. Now, I haven't played every Resident Evil entry in the series. My journey started with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, then I played Village, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, and the fourth one as well. I've enjoyed all of them. Even Resident Evil 3 felt a little bit short to me. So going into Requiem, I knew what I liked and what I didn't like from the series so far, and this game just delivered on all of it. But before we get into the gameplay, let me set the scene. So you're playing as two different characters in the story, whose stories collide in a way that just works. Grace Ashcroft is a new character, the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft, an outbreak survivor who gets sent to investigate a hotel where there's been some murders taking place, ironically enough, the same place that her mother was killed. Then you've got the longtime favorite, Leon S. Kennedy, who is infected with a virus that's slowly killing him while he's racing to find a cure. The story is not a 10 out of 10, but it kept me completely locked in just to see what happens to Leon, honestly. And it especially keeps you locked in once these iconic locations start showing up. Let's talk about this dual protagonist system because it's a centerpiece of the whole game. You basically switch back and forth between Grace and Leon, and these are genuinely two different games stitched together. Capcom even recommends different camera modes for each of them. First person for Grace for that classic more survival horror feel, and third person for Leon for the more action experience. And here's the thing, it just works. Grace's sections are all about tension and resource scarcity, limited inventory, avoidance-based gameplay, a new blood collecting crafting system that you pick up in the first main area. I'm not entirely sure how collecting blood leads to handgun ammo, but hey, it's make-believe. My first real gripe with the game is that the first-person mode had no field of view sliders, so you're just locked in. And I typically don't get motion sickness from video games ever, but after the first few hours playing as Grace, I had to switch it to third person because I felt like I was just getting a pounding headache after a while. After switching to third person, I never looked back. It was still a good experience. I still got jump scared, and everything is fine. The opening hospital with a shadow ghost, the giant woman who chases you around, the giant woman who makes it her mission to terrorize you had me genuinely stressed out. This was scary. Grace as a character is fantastic. Her voice actor did an incredible job, and let me say, incredible. The shakiness in her delivery made everything feel just so much more real. It hit me right in the feels in a way I really wasn't expecting from this game. I can't wait to see her in another entry, and I'm sure she's definitely going to be back. Leon's section are where this thing really starts taking off and shining. At first, you feel like an unstoppable monster compared to Grace. This man can take hits, parry, Chuck Norris roundhouse zombies across the room. It's awesome. I know you can play him as first person, but I don't know how you can. I might have to try that out just to see what it's like. Leon's inventory compared to Grace is night and day. He is absolutely kitted out, and he keeps getting more weapons as the story goes on. I was never really short on resources with Leon the way I was with Grace, maybe just healing items really, but I was constantly scrounging as Grace just to make do. And honestly, the contrast is the point. After being chased and terrified as Grace, switching to Leon felt like a breath of fresh air that kind of mixed up the gameplay so you're not just stuck in this one game mode the entire time. And then whenever you have to switch back to Grace after playing Leon, you get a feeling of dread. Not of, I don't want to play this anymore dread, but I know I'm about to get the crap scared out of me again. My first playthrough clocked in at 9 hours and 38 minutes. For a $70 game, that felt more than fair. You can tell the devs actually cared in this game. The amount of polish is pretty good. There are really no redundant fetch quests, no filler. The only time the game really slows down is more of the stealth sections where the game forces you, but it's by design to be that way. That said, I still did not enjoy two sections of this game. The orphanage felt just unnecessary. It gives some backstory on Grace that could have been a flashback, really. It just didn't really help anything with the story. And the opening of the game drags its feet a little bit before it really opens up, but when it opens up, my God, it opens up. Something worth mentioning in the game, early on, it leans more into Grace's story. So for the first couple hours, you're mostly going to be Grace. You're going to get some small Leon sections, but the third act is where Leon's really shines. So if you feel like it's kind of a balance issue and you're not ever going to get to play as Leon as much as you are Grace, it does even out towards the end. But it rewards your patience because it's definitely worth it. A quick note for some PC players, on launch day I had some annoying bugs. The ray tracing kept re-enabling itself after restarts. The resolution would change back to 1080p instead of 1440p that I play at, and enabling DLSS, the frame generation, crashed my game every single time. Mid playthrough of this, NVIDIA did release a driver update that did fix the DLSS issues. So everything seems to be running a lot smoother after this update. The only scene of the game that ran a little bit rough for me was the motorcycle scene. But let me know in the comments if you had similar issues on your setup. I'm curious to how widespread this issue actually was, and I'm playing on a 4070 Ti. Graphics, though, visually, this game is absolutely stunning. Capcom's RE engine continues to impress and be one of the best in the business. And Requiem might be the best looking game they've ever made. The lighting especially does a lot of heavy lifting in some of these horror areas, like Grace's sections in particular, use darkness and shadow in a way that genuinely adds to the fear. In the first part of the hospital when you're being chased by the shadow ghost. Although all you have to like the way is just a lighter and the red glow of the emergency lights. Dude, it's pretty freaky. That's mostly the main video you'll see of people freaking out online is to that section. And let me tell you, through that section, run into that room to get to the light, I was clenched.
This is the fastest that you can run, you are going to die.
The environments are just grotesquely detailed in the best way possible. The hospital, the hotel, everything just feels like it's laid out pretty great. Raccoon City, every location really feels lived in and decayed in a way. I mean, Raccoon City looks wiped out, of course. I mean, it's not hard to do decay. But everything, all the other areas, the hospital area that you're in, everything just feels really, really good. The character models are fantastic, too. Leon looks older and more weathered than he did in Resident Evil 4 Remake in a way that actually matters to the story, because you can see he's looking rough, especially with the virus actually spreading across his body. And Grace's facial animations, whoever did her animations did a great job, because it tied to her voice so well to really bring everything all together. You can see the fear in her face just as much as you can actually hear it. My only visual complaints are some minor collision issues I had. Obviously, they're reusing assets from previous games. I don't really care, but some people throw their hands up in the air about that. I don't really mind it. But honestly, those are just nitpicks, which is otherwise one of the best looking Resident Evil games I've ever played. No, we need to talk about the boss fights. The boss fights in this game follow the classic Resident Evil logic, and if you've played Resident Evil, you know what these are. I mean, you know how this goes. It's you shoot the weak points, and it explodes. The enemy mutates into something bigger, and then you shoot the little red balls, and they all die. I mean, not much more than that. I do wish there was a bit more variety in how they structured some of these boss fights, and I just feel like that is one of the weak points of the Resident Evil games, is that the boss fights, you just don't really get a whole lot of unique experiences, especially in this one. It's just pretty generic compared to what we've seen in other games. I will see that the boss fights are pretty heavily backloaded towards Leon's section of the game, which makes sense that Grace doesn't really have exactly the firepower to go toe-to-toe with some of these giant mutant whatever these creatures are. The Shadow Ghost functions more as a puzzle you have to solve rather than a straight-up fight against her. It's kind of just stealth sections avoiding her. Grace's whole gameplay is basically just run, hide, and figure it out. There's one boss fight later in the game that I won't name until the spoiler section that I think is going to hit the Resident Evil 2 remakes especially hard. Walking into that encounter, knowing what I knew from that game, made it land in a way that I wasn't expecting. I didn't think they were going to do it, but it lands pretty great. I just wish it lasted a little bit longer. It came kind of short-lived, and then it was over. But, I mean, it is what it is. There's some new enemy types. The blister heads aren't technically boss fights. They function like little mini bosses every time you run into them as Grace. With Leon, you can really take them out pretty easily. But you run into these things as Grace, dude, you're going to have to put some bullets into them. They're very bullet spongy. Unless you have some of these little injectors things. But as Leon, you can shoot their legs and finish them with an axe. As Grace, just good luck. Your options are a well-placed Requiem shot, which is, ammo is expensive, and the injectors that one-tap them, or you just keep on running. You'll be doing a lot of running as Grace, because honestly, half the time it's not even worth the little injector you can shoot them with. The bosses, I think, are one area where I think the game definitely leaves a little on the table. But they're not bad boss fights. They're animated well. Everything looks well, but it's just a formula that hasn't really been mixed up a lot. They just don't hit as hard as the rest of the experience does. As for fan service, does this game do the series justice? Yes, the fan service hits the right balance, present enough to feel like a love letter, but restrained enough to not feel like it's pandering too long. And it definitely wasn't pandering too long. The return to Raccoon City and RPD from Resident Evil 2 is genuinely exciting. Walking back in that building, seeing the little slideshow of Resident Evil 2, I mean, it hits home. I mean, you get chills. Just going to that iconic location. The world's moved on, everything's even more decayed, and I actually definitely recommend playing Resident Evil 2 Remake before you play this one, just to appreciate the callbacks. Leon's entire arc in this game is basically Capcom saying thank you to the people that have been here since the beginning. I mean, Leon just goes through and earns every piece of it. My final verdict overall: Resident Evil Requiem delivers on every front. The graphics are great. Dual protagonist system works. Something we've not seen in the series before, switching it up to both of them. The pacing, some of the tightest the series has ever had, in my opinion. Personally, this definitely sits in my top 3 of Resident Evil games besides Resident Evil 2 Remake and Biohazard, which arguably saved the franchise. If you're a longtime fan, you're going to love this game. If you're brand new to Resident Evil, you'll probably still love this game too. I mean, honestly, it's just really great. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 this year. So far, this is my game of the year for sure. Unless GTA, whenever it comes out, if it actually comes out this year, which we'll see, it's going to have a real fight on its hand at the Game Awards. That's for sure. Definitely buy this game. Support Capcom. They did a great job here. All right, now this is your spoiler warning. If you have not finished the game, this is your time to exit and come back whenever you are done. And come back here because now we're going to be getting into the spoiler section. Talking about the endings, where the story's going to be going in the next games, what I think, stuff like that. And the boss fights that we couldn't talk about and the biggest part of it. So let's talk about the endings. There are 2 endings and they could not be more different. And they are very different. And some people are getting mostly the bad one that is not considered canon. So in a bad ending, Grace triggers the arc self-destruction. Leon gets overpowered by Zeno and gets shot in the head, and Grace escapes alone. She survives, but she saved no one. It's bleak. The true ending and the canon one is something else. Grace figures out that Elpis is actually not a bioweapon at all. It's a cure. And Zeno, not knowing this, injects it into himself, which basically takes him out of the fight completely because he loses his powers, which saves Leon in the end and secures a vial for Sherry Birkin as well. And Grace cures Leon, goes on to adopt Emily, the little girl from the care facility, stepping directly into her own mother's shoes that we see in the interview with her and Spencer. It's a full circle moment that I genuinely did not see coming, and it hit harder than I expected. Nothing felt rushed in this game at all. It had a good emotional payoff, and sometimes games can miss with emotional payoffs at the end, but this one did land pretty perfectly. Now let's talk about Elpis, because this is massive. We learned that Spencer and the founder and president of Umbrella, the man responsible for all of it, created Elpis. Created Elpis as an act of redemption at the end of his life. It isn't a cure for just one virus. It targets all the virus, all the bioweapons, the T virus, G virus, all of it. All for the first time in the history of the franchise. There's actually hope for the world to get rid of all and cure all the bioweapons. This series spent a lot of years building a world of biological horror just to introduce the possibility of ending it all. I mean, they could end this thing. I don't know. It's a super bold, creative swing, and I'm here for it. Spencer going out of his way to makes him one of the more tragic figures. He knows that he did wrong, and he wanted to fix it towards the end of his life. Still absolutely horrible what he did, but it is what it is. Let's go back and talk about the 2 boss fights I could not mention earlier. The Mr. X variant, or if that is Mr. X, whoever it is, in the Raccoon City Police Department. Walking back into that police department and then having him chase us around just for a few minutes. Just the history, I got goosebumps. It hit me right in the feels. It's a brilliant callback. My only complaint that it does go down a little too fast for everything that the character means to this franchise. The fight deserved to be a little bit longer, I think, and maybe a little bit harder. I mean, I maybe was in the boss fight encounter with him for maybe a minute or 2. And the motorcycle sequence against Victor is technically a boss fight. Probably, I mean, I don't know how to be a boss fight. It's like the easiest section of the game. You just point and shoot, and it's over for that section until you fight him at the end. And at the end, it's still just basic stuff. And I thought Zeno was going to be a threat throughout the entire game, but you basically just got taken out through dialogue. And he's just a cutscene villain, basically. And I just wish we could have got something out of him. Now, it wasn't bad by any means. It just left me wanting a little bit more. It's just a weak point, and I feel like they definitely need to step it up some in the next game. Let's talk about the future of the series. Chris Redfield does not show up in this game, but his Hound Wolf Squad swoops in to save Leon and Grace right as the Ark is about to collapse. And it's setting up something big. One of them mentions that Captain Redfield sent him. So it seems like Leon and Chris are going to be crossing paths pretty soon. A team up with Chris and Leon in Resident Evil 10 sounds amazing. That'll be awesome. I'm on board for that one, 100%. We also get a post-credit scene of a mysterious group entering the Ark ruins ahead of the Wolf Squad retrieving something. That feels like it's either going to be DLC setup or Resident Evil 10. I'm leaning more towards DLC setup. Either way, Capcom is clearly not done with the story. On the remake side, there are rumors circulating Resident Evil Code Veronica and Resident Evil Zero getting remakes. I personally have never played these games, but I've heard that they are some great games, and I look forward to them. I'm definitely going to be checking those out when they drop, so if you definitely want to check those out, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If we're lucky, we could see both of these before 2030. The franchise has never been in better shape, and I genuinely cannot wait to see where they're going to take this thing. Who do you want to see lead the next mainline game? Grace again, Leon, Chris, or is it finally time for Jill Valentine to come back? I'm very curious to to what she's been up to all this time. Let me know down in the comments below. What did you think of Resident Evil Requiem? What are you rated on a scale of 1 to 10? Where does it land in your Resident Evil hierarchy? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to see more gaming content, please like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end, and I will see you next time. Thanks.